Everybody, it's Mike Shellenberger for Public. Brazil's President Lula has long said he respects free speech, the rule of law, and free markets, but it's now clear that he doesn't. Supreme Court Justice Alexandre de Moraes is about to block X and has already frozen the bank accounts of Elon Musk's Starlink satellite internet company. Many in Brazil believe that Moraes is doing so with the support of Lula. The freezing of Starlink's bank account and the banning of X are flagrantly illegal. These are acts of retaliation against X for defying Moraes' censorship demands, which Brazilian legal experts say are a violation of Brazil's constitution. Moraes demanded that X permanently ban politicians and journalists, which would effectively end their careers. As such, Brazil is now a dictatorship. It is run by two men, Lula and Moraes. They are ending freedom of speech and free markets. Brazil is no longer safe for foreign investment, and its currency should start to reflect that. It is notable that the imminent blocking of X is coming just weeks before local elections in Brazil. As such, the demands for censorship and these attacks constitute election interference, which is as illegal in Brazil as it is in the United States. Some say Lula is not responsible for Moraes' actions. The executive branch and the judicial branch are separate in Brazil, just as they are here in the United States. Officially, it was the Brazilian Supreme Court that blocked X and froze the bank accounts of Starlink, not President Lula. But Brazilians close to the situation told me that Moraes would not be taking such radical actions if he didn't have the strong support of Lula. Lula had plenty of opportunity to distance himself from the censorship project. Many also point to the fact that Lula and Moraes share a key ally on the Supreme Court, a man named Justice Dias Toffoli. Toffoli worked as a lawyer for Lula's Workers' Party, the PT, for many years. Toffoli was part of the very famous car wash corruption scandal that ultimately sent Lula to prison in 2018. And it was Toffoli who created a fake news investigation, which was a key moment in the creation of the censorship industrial complex in Brazil. Journalist David Agape noted that after the 2022 elections, Moraes met with the president-elect Lula, urging the implementation of social networks regulation legislation. Throughout the election, Moraes used various methods to broadly censor Lula's opponents, a tactic that many believe was instrumental to Lula's victory. And other details now confirm that Moraes has the support of President Lula. Yesterday, a Brazilian journalist reported that Moraes won the support of at least two other Supreme Court justices before announcing that he would shut down X if the company did not submit a Brazilian representative for arrest for violating Moraes' censorship orders. One of those justices told the journalist that no company can operate in Brazil without legal representation and in disrespect of the laws and national sovereignty, the same argument Moraes has been making. Those Supreme Court justices told the reporter that Moraes would have the support of the majority of the Supreme Court if it were necessary to suspend the social network's activities in the country. Those justices defended Moraes, saying that his decision to notify Musk via X was an attempt to give the billionaire another chance to keep the social network online. The minister didn't even need to do that. He could simply have suspended the platform's activities without any subpoena because he had already complied with the legal procedure beforehand. In 1994, I personally interviewed Lula and asked him if he intended to turn Brazil into a socialist dictatorship like Cuba. He said no, that it was not his intention. It now appears he lied to me and is in the process of doing just that. The other two nations that have completely blocked X are China and North Korea. If Lula and de Moraes follow through on their threat and entirely cut off access to X later today, Brazil will have gone further than Iran, Russia, and Burma, as well as many other authoritarian nations which restricted the platform but did not ban it. Brazil's Senate can impeach Moraes, and Brazilian journalists told me that the reason the Senate hasn't done so is because so many senators are controlled by Moraes, who's in charge of various legal cases against them and their families. But the freezing of the bank accounts of an American company is now a geopolitical issue. President Joe Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris, and Secretary of State Antony Blinken must immediately demand that Brazil end its illegal attack on free markets, freedom of speech, and the rule of law. The good news is that resistance to Lula and Moraes is growing in Brazil. A large national protest demanding the impeachment of Moraes will take place in São Paulo in September. A petition for impeachment now has over 1 million signatures. and it appears that the most influential newspaper in Brazil, the Folha de São Paulo, is turning against Moraes. It editorialized against censorship earlier this year. It published articles, including one by an American journalist, Glenn Greenwald, exposing illegal procedures used by Moraes. And a few days ago, Moraes censored an interview by the Folha with an aide to former President Bolsonaro, whom Moraes had incarcerated unconstitutionally without a trial. Brazil's crackdown now could backfire against Lula. Musk is popular in Brazil in part because of the benefits of satellite internet in rural areas such as the Amazon. After severe flooding in southern Brazil last spring, Musk donated 1,000 Starlink kits with free service for emergency first responders. Whatever happens next, it's important that we stay vigilant, defend human rights, and fight for the restoration of democracy in Brazil. Thanks for listening.